The streets of Egypt were alive with dust, voices, and the restless hum of a kingdom under Set's cruel reign. Merchants shouted over one another, children darted between the legs of soldiers, and the temple bells rang hollow in the heavy air. Among the crowd, moving swiftly and quietly like a shadow, was Beck, the thief who had stolen treasures from guarded vaults and secrets from the lips of the proud. Yet today, he wasn't chasing gold or jewels. Today, all his attention was on the woman walking at his side. Zaya's presence seemed to quiet the noise around him. She was radiant, not in the way of queens with their crowns or goddesses with their magic, but with a gentleness that made her shine brighter than the sunlit stones of the marketplace. Her eyes carried hope in a time when hope had nearly vanished, and when she spoke, her words carried faith as if she were whispering prayers into the wind. "Beck," she said softly, leaning closer so the guards wouldn't overhear, "the people cannot endure this much longer. Set's greed has drowned Egypt in suffering. But Horus, he is still alive. If he regains his power, he can bring back the light." Beck gave a quiet chuckle, though his heart ached with the truth of her words. "Horus, the blind god locked away in his grief. I've seen men with sharper vision than him, Zaya." His words were playful, but behind them was the unspoken truth: he did not trust the gods. They had failed Egypt, failed its people, and most of all, failed her. But Zaya's faith was unshakable. She touched his hand lightly, her fingers brushing against his calloused skin. "I believe in him, and I believe in you. If anyone can find a way to help him, it is you, Beck. You've outsmarted kings, you've broken into palaces, you can do this, not for Horus alone, but for all of us." Beck turned his gaze toward her, and for a moment, the clamor of the streets faded into silence. He saw the fire in her eyes, the same fire that had made him fall in love with her long ago. She wasn't asking for riches or freedom just for herself, she was asking for Egypt, for its people, for something greater than either of them. And though Beck was a man who lived for daring escapes and clever tricks, he knew the truth: he would do anything for her. Not for Egypt, not even for Horus, but for Zaya, the only treasure he had ever truly valued. "Then I will," he whispered, almost as if the words were a vow to her heart alone. "I will steal back the power of a god if it means seeing you smile again." Zaya's smile broke through the shadows of fear that surrounded them, bright and unwavering. In that moment, even with Set's soldiers patrolling nearby and danger lurking in every corner, Beck felt invincible. Together, they dared to dream of freedom, unaware of how fragile that dream truly was, and how soon fate would tear it apart. Friends, if this story touches your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to Kindness Speaks for more heartfelt tales. The palace of Set was a labyrinth of cold stone and towering pillars, each carved with the cruel symbols of his reign. Torches burned in their sconces, casting long shadows across the gilded halls. Beck moved swiftly, every step calculated, every breath held tight. His fingers brushed the walls as if memorizing the path, his eyes sharp with the focus of a man who had cheated death more times than he could count. Yet he was not alone. Behind him, Zaya followed closely, her face glowing with both fear and trust. They had come too far to turn back. Beck had stolen into forbidden chambers before, but never with such stakes, never with Zaya's hand clasped firmly in his as they wove through danger. His heart pounded, not for himself, but for her. Every echo of footsteps behind them made his grip tighten, every flicker of torchlight against armor made him pull her closer into the shadows. But fate is rarely merciful. Just as they slipped through a narrow corridor, the sound of clashing steel erupted ahead. A squad of Set's soldiers emerged, bronze armor glinting in the torchlight, their spears raised high. "Run," Beck hissed, pulling Zaya with him as they darted down another passage. The soldiers shouted, their heavy boots thundered against the stone, and the chase began. Beck's speed and cunning carried them through the maze-like halls, dodging traps and slipping past narrow openings. His heart surged with desperate determination. And then it happened. An arrow, loosed from the shadows, sang through the air. Beck barely had time to turn when he felt Zaya's hand wrench from his. Her cry cut through him like a blade. He spun around, and his world collapsed in a single instant. Zaya staggered, her hand pressed against her chest where the arrow had struck. Blood bloomed across her white dress like a cruel flower. Her eyes widened in shock, then softened as she fell into Beck's arms. "No, no, no, stay with me," Beck whispered, lowering her gently to the cold stone floor. His voice trembled, his chest heaved, and he pressed his hand over the wound as if his touch could hold her life inside. "Don't leave me, Zaya. You can't." Her lips parted, her breath shallow, trembling. She looked at him with all the love she carried, her eyes filled with a sorrowful acceptance. "Beck," she whispered, her voice fragile, almost lost in the echoing halls. And then the light in her eyes began to fade. The clamor of the soldiers drew nearer, but Beck could not hear them. The world had gone silent, empty, except for the sound of his own breaking heart. He cradled her against his chest, tears spilling down his face, refusing to believe the truth pressing against him with every fading breath she took. The fearless thief who had defied kings and gods was powerless now, brought to his knees by the cruel hand of fate. Beck knelt on the cold stone floor, his arms wrapped tightly around Zaya's lifeless body. The world around him blurred, his vision drowned in tears that refused to stop. He had always been quick on his feet, sharp in his mind, able to find an escape from every trap and twist fate through his way. But now, as he clutched the woman he loved more than life itself, he felt utterly helpless. For the first time, Beck had no trick, no plan, no daring escape. All he had was grief. Her head rested against his shoulder, her long dark hair falling loosely across his chest. Beck brushed it back gently with trembling hands, whispering her name again and again as if the repetition might call her soul back from wherever it was slipping away to. His words broke apart, his voice raw and hoarse. "Zaya, please, stay with me. I can't do this without you." The palace torches flickered, casting cruel shadows across the walls, as if mocking his pain. Around him, the sounds of soldiers echoed closer, but he no longer cared. What was the point of running, of fighting, if Zaya was gone? Every theft he had risked, every danger he had braved, it had all been for her. Without her, the gold meant nothing, freedom meant nothing, even life itself felt like nothing more than a burden too heavy to carry. His tears dropped onto her pale cheeks, as though the heavens themselves had descended in mourning. He rocked her gently, the way a man cradles the only thing that matters in the world. "You were my everything," he whispered, his words shaking as though each one tore another piece from his soul. "I would have stolen the stars for you, Zaya. I would have taken the sun itself from the sky if you asked me." And now, his voice broke completely, the rest of his confession swallowed by grief. Zaya's lips were parted, but no breath passed them now. Her eyes, once full of fire and faith, were closed, sealing away the warmth that had guided him through every dark path. Beck pressed his forehead against hers, clinging to the last traces of her presence. In that moment, the world could have ended and he would not have noticed. The soldiers' shouts grew louder, the clanging of their armor reverberating down the halls, but Beck was frozen. He wanted to stay there forever, holding her, ignoring time and fate. Yet deep inside, beneath the crushing weight of despair, a flicker of something else began to stir, a fragile, desperate determination. If he could not save her here, perhaps there was another way. Perhaps the gods, as much as he hated them, could not ignore the strength of his love. And so, as his tears soaked into her dress, a silent vow began to form in Beck's heart, a vow that her death would not be the end. The world around Beck was collapsing into chaos. The thunder of boots drew closer, the clash of metal echoed through the stone halls, and the sharp ring of arrows being notched filled the air. The soldiers of Set were hunting him, their cries growing louder, their fury pressing in from every side. Yet Beck's arms held the only thing that mattered, Zaya's limp body. Her warmth was fading, her weight heavier with each passing moment, but he could not let go. He would never let go. With trembling strength, he lifted her fully into his arms and rose to his feet. His knees wavered beneath the strain, not from her weight but from the crushing grief threatening to break him apart. He pressed his cheek against her hair for a fleeting second, inhaling the fading trace of her scent. It grounded him, it reminded him of why he still had to move, why he could not collapse in this hall and surrender to despair. Arrows whistled past him, clattering against the walls, one striking so close it nicked the stone inches from his head. Beck gritted his teeth and pushed forward, sprinting down the long corridor. His feet pounded against the cold stone, his breath ragged, his heart screaming with both grief and urgency. Each turn of the palace felt like a maze designed to trap him, yet somehow, through instinct born of years of thievery, he knew the paths to take. "Stop him," the captain of the guard shouted, his voice booming. "Bring me the girl's body, alive or dead, Set demands it." The words sliced into Beck's mind, igniting a fury he had never known before. They wanted to defile even her death, to rob him of the last piece of her he still held. Rage burned away the weakness in his legs, and he surged forward faster, weaving through pillars and slipping into narrow passageways only a thief's body could navigate. Zaya's hair brushed against his arm as he ran, her stillness a constant reminder of what he had lost. Each heartbeat tore him in two, one half screaming in sorrow, the other clawing desperately at hope. Somewhere in the depths of his grief, a single thought anchored him: if Horus could be restored, if the gods could be forced to act, then maybe Zaya's soul could find peace, maybe even return. He darted down a hidden stairwell, descending into the darker underbelly of the palace. The air was damp, the torches fewer, but the shouts of soldiers still echoed above, growing fainter with every step. Beck's chest heaved as he stumbled forward, nearly collapsing under the burden of exhaustion and grief. Yet he clung tighter to Zaya, whispering through clenched teeth, "I won't lose you. Not like this, not forever." Finally, bursting out into the cool night air, Beck staggered into the shadows of the outer walls. The stars stretched wide above him, indifferent to his pain, their ancient light a cruel reminder of how small mortal lives seemed in the eyes of the gods. Yet Beck did not care. To him, Zaya's life had been brighter than every star combined. As he vanished into the darkness beyond Set's palace, his vow solidified. This was not the end. He would defy fate itself, steal from the gods if he had to, and find a way to bring her back. The desert night wrapped itself around Beck like a cold shroud as he stumbled away from Set's palace, Zaya's lifeless body still cradled in his arms. The stars above glimmered with cruel serenity, watching silently as his world collapsed beneath their distant light. The moon's pale glow traced her features, soft and still, as though she were only sleeping. For a fleeting moment, Beck let himself believe it, that she would wake, smile at him, and tease him for worrying so much. But the heaviness in her form shattered the illusion. She was gone, and nothing in the mortal world could change that. Beck dropped to his knees in the sand, his strength finally giving way. The grains clung to his skin, the night wind whipped against his face, but he did not care. He laid Zaya down gently, brushing a strand of hair from her face as though she might still feel his touch. His chest ached with a hollowness deeper than any wound. He had stolen treasures from kings, slipped through traps no man should survive, but this was the one thing he could not steal back. Death itself had robbed him, and he was powerless. Tears welled in his eyes again, hot and relentless. He pressed his forehead to hers, closing his eyes, whispering into the stillness, "I promised you a better life. I promised you freedom, safety, happiness, and I failed. I don't deserve to ask anything more of you, but I swear, Zaya, this is not where it ends." His voice trembled, but each word rang with iron resolve. The whispers of the night seemed to answer him, the sigh of the wind carrying his grief across the endless sands. His heart, broken though it was, clung to a desperate hope. Egypt was a land where gods walked among mortals, where the veil between life and death was thin, where the impossible could be stolen like any other prize. Beck's mind sharpened with a thief's instinct. If death had taken Zaya, then he would find a way to take her back. He lifted his gaze toward the horizon, where the faint outlines of temples stood against the starry sky. Those sacred places, once meaningless to him, now became his only hope. If Horus could regain his strength, if balance could be restored, then perhaps her soul could be freed from the underworld's grip. With trembling hands, Beck clasped hers, holding on as though even death could not break their bond. "I will fight for you," he vowed. "I will steal from gods and challenge demons if I must. No wall, no army, no curse will stop me. You are my everything, Zaya, and I will not rest until I bring you back." The night carried his vow into eternity, and though he was only a mortal against the powers of gods, in that moment Beck's love gave him a strength greater than any divine weapon. Rising once more, his grief hardened into determination. This was no longer a thief's game. This was a battle against fate itself. And Beck would not lose. If this story moved you, please share it, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Kindness Speaks for more stories of love, redemption, and hope.